Hi, my name is Daniel Blackburn, and today we're going to talk about organic farming and how to manage plant nutrition and soil fertility in these environments. All right, this lecture is part of the course SWAE4401 Water and Nutrient Cycling in Soil Plant Environment. And as I was talking before, we're going to talk about organic farming and nutrient management. Organic farming and nutrient management. First of all, we have to get something out of the way, that the plants, they do not get their nutrition from organic molecules. They take their nutrition from inorganic, ionic form of the nutrients, of the elements. There are macronutrients and micronutrients. So it's not that organic farming is giving plants organic nutrients. It's just the way in which they manage the application of different nutrients in organic forms that makes that word organic be relevant in this situation. But still the plants will take their nutrients from in their inorganic ionic forms. But that being said, let's go for the definition of what is organic farming. Organic farming is an alternative agricultural system where you have no inputs of soluble inorganic fertilizers, no chemical pesticides, no GMOs, genetically modified organisms, and there is a higher concern for animal welfare. Organic farming can be defined as a philosophy of a lifestyle. So if you are concerned with health and environment, many people who are concerned with health and environment, they opt to produce and eat only organic produce, agricultural produce grown in an organic fashion. But also organic farming, it concerns of a legal regulation. If you are a farmer, maybe you're interested in the higher profits in selling your produce at a higher price, and you want to certify of being organic farmer. So there is legal regulations that specify who can be legally an organic farmer or not. So you have to abide by some rules that will tell you if you were really an organic farmer or not. But one thing we must say is that although most of the farming in the world now is not organic farming is not an impossible task, because before the 1950s, before the Green Revolution, all the farms were organic. Everything we were doing was using organic fertilizers and alternative pesticides, and that was the way to go before. Nevertheless, the technology advanced, and we had many pesticides coming from oil processing and oil industry. And from that, the normal conventional agriculture changed into what we have today. And organic farming sometimes represents a comeback for the most traditional ways of farming and on the past. In some countries like Oman, like we are living today, this traditional farming system still very much on vogue in different situations. For example, in some situations you will find the farmers in Oman, they don't want to use chemical fertilizers. They only want to use manures, and they find that the chemical fertilizers are not as good as, and they would not give the same results as the organic fertilizers. So this is traditional forms of agriculture. They're closer to organic farming than the more modern ones. But what is the official definition of organic farming is a production system that sustains the health of soils, ecosystems, and people. It relies on ecological processes, biodiversity, and cycles adapted to local conditions, rather than the use of inputs with adverse effects Organic agriculture combines tradition, innovation, and science to benefit the shared environment and promote the relationships and a good quality of life for all involved. So you can see that there's very much a good amount of philosophical background in this type of agriculture, and that is one of the main motivations for people to join this movement, the organic farming. But in the practice, we have to see what it consists in and how should we manage nutrient fertility in these situations. How is it done, and what are the different components, and how do we do it? So in general, without just looking into plant nutrition, we have that organic farming will have the seeds coming from organic crops and not exposed to chemicals. So most of the seeds now in conventionally grown farms, they are coated with pesticides, especially fungicides, to avoid those fungi that will kill the plants while they are seedlings. So in organic farming, that is not allowed. The conventionally grown system we can have engineered seeds to resist pesticides, and then we can have GMOs also, genetically modified organisms, where in organically grown systems that is not allowed. The weed control in organically grown systems, you cannot have herbicides. You can only rely on natural methods like crop rotations, animals, or just removing mechanically those weeds. Pest control systems, in conventionally grown, you have synthetic fungicides and pesticides, whereas in organic farms, you will have to rely on natural enemies and also alternative pesticides for those systems. The conventionally grown non-organic farms, they will use chemical fertilizers. In human sewage is also allowed, whereas in organic, it's only organic fertilizers, and some rock pounders like rock phosphate, for example, can be allowed in those systems also. There are some alternatives for example, lime in the soils. In some situations is allowed, and depending on the source of this material. So if it comes from slags, for example, they're not allowed in organic farming, but if it comes from rocks, it will be allowed in organic farming. The cost in conventionally grown farms, it tends to be lower, the production costs in conventional farm, than it is in organic farming. And but nevertheless, in organic farming, you will have that you may have that you sell it for higher prices. You can make up for the higher cost also. In organic farming, it tends to be that the appearance of the product is of lower standards. So, and sometimes for export, the appearance is very important, and the classification of the product is not based on how healthy it is, but how well it looks on the shelf. So organic farming struggles to compete with non-organic farms to get the same appearance on these products. So again, there's some systems, they will be like alternative natural farming systems, but they will not get up to the standard of organic farming. For example, some pesticides can be allowed, GMOs can be allowed, but in organic they're not allowed. Antibiotics are not allowed in organics. Hormones for animals are not allowed. Sludge and irradiation also not allowed. But in some other systems, you will have some more sustainable farming that can be still use some of these, but in lower amount and in a more responsible way, and still that will not be an organic system if it does not abide to all the rules. So there are animal welfare requirements in organic. You are supposed to have lower levels of environmental pollution, and you have to go to audit from all the steps on your production system to account that you have not used any of the inputs that are not allowed in the system. You need to be certified and you have to have inspections to your farms. Anyway, so let's go to the next slides. This is the distorted world map accounting for how much organic farming area in hectares there are. So you will see that in Latin America, Brazil, it has a very low amount of organic farming. In Africa, very low amount of organic farming. The majority of organic farming will be in Europe, North America, in Australia. Yeah, so this is how it's distributed worldwide these days. The area of organic farming. So if we go deeper on how do we manage the nutrients in organic farming system, and when you have conventionally grown farms, you will have that the main source of fertilizer are chemical soluble fertilizers. Yeah, so for example, for phosphorus, triple superphosphate, the ammonium phosphate. For nitrogen, you have urea, for example. But in the conventionally grown farms, you don't need to use only chemical fertilizers. You can mix and match, and you can have the advantages of having organic fertilizers together with the advantages of having chemical fertilizers. So when you copy traditional farming systems that increase the sustainability of your farms, but you do not abide to them exclusively, you can call these farms sustainable farming systems. Yeah? Where if you have organic, you have to stick and use only the methods for plant nutrition that are allowed, legally allowed for these systems. For example, green manure for nitrogen fixation from the atmosphere through symbiotic microbes and legume roots. Intercropping, for example, it's very much used with legumes for fixing nitrogen. The crop residues as green manures and cover crops also turns the nutrients back to the soil, increase the cycling, and introduce a lot of carbon to that soil. There's a heavy use of animal manures and compost. About 10 tons per hectare is a rule of thumb. Rock phosphate for phosphorus, green sand for potassium, lime and elemental sulfur can be allowed depending on the source of these materials. So first of all, the fertilizer application is heavily dependent on application of compost and manures. In many cases, these organic farms are coupled with animal production systems, so it's a multi-purpose farm, very diversified. So if you are producing animals, you are producing also manures, and you can have compost from these manures or the same manures themselves being applied directly for organic farming. Green manures and cover crops are heavily used also, and they're very valuable in the system. So you have in the off-season where you don't have your cash crops on the field, if you are non-irrigated farms, or you have strong seasons where that does not allow you to crop your farms throughout the whole year. The off-season can be your soil must be covered with cover crops, and these cover crops might be used as a mulch material as cover crops, or they can be mixed with the soil as in a green manure fashion. And how do you choose these cover crops and these green manures is very important. And also the intercropping plants, because you need to be heavily dependent on legumes. Why legumes? Because the legumes are heavily associated, they have the symbiotic association with rhizobium bacteria. And they have the symbiotic relationship with rhizobium bacteria, forming these root nodules that you see here in the photograph. And this rhizobium bacteria carry an enzyme which is very unique in nature. It's called the nitrogenase. And the nitrogenase is a high energy using enzyme that is able to split the triple bond of N2 from the atmosphere and fix that as ammonium. Yeah? And the plants can use the nitrogen that these microbes are using, and in retribution the plants will give them sugars and energy for them to perform these tasks. Legumes are responsible, together with the rhizobium, for the majority of nitrogen fixation on these systems, but nevertheless, if you increase the biodiversity on the system, you will have some amount of free-living nitrogen fixing microbes. Yeah? So in the surface of the soils, you might have cyanobacteria, and in the grasslands, there's a lot of azobacter in the rhizosphere. And this can be quite significant amount of nitrogen that is being fixed on these systems in organic farming also. How much nitrogen can be fixed by these legumes? Quite a lot, and enough for supplying the full nitrogen necessities of your crops. For example, here sweet clover can fix up to 134 kilograms of nitrogen per hectare, which is plenty for the plant nutrition of the subsequent cash crop. Benson clover 78, and so on and so forth. If you have a good choice of a legume with and these legumes are heavily nodulated by this rhizobium, there's going to be a lot of nitrogen fixation, and this plant residue will be an adequate source of nitrogen for the subsequent crops. Yeah. So there is one problem with this is that when it comes to phosphorus, because phosphorus will not come from the atmosphere like nitrogen. You cannot have a phosphorus fixation from the atmosphere like you have from nitrogen. Phosphorus, the phosphorus cycle, the source of phosphorus comes from the weathering of rocks. So the phosphorus fertilizers in conventional farming systems, they come from phosphate rocks. And if the parent material from your soil is not high in phosphorus, it means that you will not have that option of weathering those minerals and releasing phosphorus in the soil. What happens is most of the organic farming systems, they are occupying soils which are previously they were previously conventional farming, and because the phosphorus is highly fixed on soils, it has that we have a legacy phosphorus. So if you have 20 years of conventional farming, most likely that soil contains a lot of phosphorus, and it will be enough for decades of use during organic farming. If you have an intensive cycling and return of the crop residues into the soil, this is will work quite well if you have a history of phosphorus fertilizer application on these systems. So if you have low phosphorus soils, you will need to apply organic fertilizer coming from different areas. So there's another problem in this. So in high phosphorus soils, there is a problem in organic farming on how to deplete this. It will take many years to deplete this phosphorus. When you have optimum phosphorus, this cycling in organic farming is quite adequate. And when you have low phosphorus, there's another problem here. Yeah, there is a lot of problem because you need to bring manures and compost from other sites. Yeah, so it means there's a sustainability issue here, that you are harvesting biomass from an area and transferring it to a new area. So you are concentrating nutrients in your organic farming, but that nutrients is coming at the expense of the depletion of other soils. So it happens, for example, that if you have countries which are very intensive growing animals, confined animals, they're importing soybeans and maize from corn from other countries, and these nutrients that come with imported feed materials, they are supporting the production of organic farming systems, but it doesn't mean that this is coming at the expense of the depletion of the soils from the countries that are producing that feed. So there is some, with phosphorus is a little bit more controversial. How do you manage this phosphorus nutrition? Because it might be that if you are heavily adding input, you will mean that you overaccumulate phosphorus. If you're not adding external inputs in the organic farming system, it might be that you are depleting this beyond the level that you find optimum for the plants. So the phosphorus management in organic farming systems can be a little bit more controversial. The organic farming system that we have here in the greenhouses in Sultan Qaboos University is heavily dependent on the inputs of compost, and that means that you were completely building up more phosphorus and more phosphorus in these soils. And when the phosphorus is too high, you will tend to have a higher risk of environmental pollution of phosphate from this system. So you don't want to have too high phosphorus on your soil. You don't want to have it too low. This is quite easy to regulate when you're dealing with chemical fertilizers, but in the organic farming systems, it needs a little bit more care to take care of the phosphorus nutrition. Potassium and secondary macronutrients and micronutrients, if you are doing adding any amount of organic matter in this system, like it's normal and current in any organic farming system, you will not have a problem with those. The main things you have to worry about managing in organic farming will be nitrogen and phosphorus. And as you add external inputs of organic fertilizers, you will have most likely sufficiency of both. And if you're not adding heavy amounts of external organic fertilizer inputs, you will need to be really reliant on having legumes as cover crops and green manure on this system. Now let's talk about the environment. Is organic farming better or worse for the environment? This is a study which compiles data from several other studies, meta-analysis, and what it shows some of these advantages and disadvantages of organic farming. You have plant diversity much better and animal diversity much better than a conventional farming system. Habitat diversity and landscape is neutral. Soil, you will have good advantages of organic farming because there's a huge amount of organic matter buildup, and this comes with several benefits. For example, a higher biological activity, a better soil structure, even though in average you don't see it. You will expect that. Less erosion you will have on these soils. Ground and surface waters, you will have less nitrate leaching and of course less leaching of pesticides because you do not apply pesticides on these systems. For the air and climate, you have less CO2 emissions, less nitrogen oxides and methane are neutral. Ammonium emissions, you have less ammonium emissions. You have also less airborne pesticides because you do not apply them on these farms. On the farm, you have that there is an advantage for nutrient use, supposedly, depending on the system. Water use is neutral, and energy use, you will have less energy use on these farms. So let's wrap up this and talk about some of the characteristics of organic farming. And is it organic farming produce more nutritious? In general, no. But do they look better? In general, no. They could be, but normally not. Is it healthier? Most likely yes, because you will not contain residues of pesticides, and by having a diverse nutrition of the plant, you will have also a diverse composition of the produce. They will have it will be a tastier. It's a product will be tastier because it will chemically be more complex than other products in conventional farming system. Is it locally grown? In general, yes, but not as a rule of thumb. In Oman, most of the organic product that you can buy in Oman is coming from Europe or elsewhere, so it's not locally grown. But if you are in Europe or USA or Australia, normally you will have that organic produce is locally grown, so it is a good thing that you are trying to stimulate that the agricultural produce is not going traveling far because that implies also a lot of carbon dioxide emission on the transport. Is it better for the environment? Yes. Yeah, is this a big yes? There is a lot of less environmental pollution coming from organic farming, and that is usually a result of less pesticide applications and also the buildup of soil organic matter, less erosion, less nutrient pollution, leaching of nutrients from these farms. Is it better for the soil? For sure. You have a lot more soil health in organic farming systems. There's a lot more organic matter being added to the soil, the biological activities. So the soil conservation is much improved in organic farming systems. But is it scalable? Can you have big areas of organic farming? This is hard to say depending on the system. But in general, organic farming is better applied to small areas than large areas. Do we have fertilizer resources to transform all the farms into organic farms? That is a big no. Yeah, there is a big no. And therefore, we should look at the practices in organic farms, and some of them can be applied universally and some not. And we can have a better sustainability of conventional farms, whereas not all the production of agricultural produce can be organic. It will be very difficult, mainly because it's very hard to provide all the nutrients we need for organic farming production for all the crops. There's no way, because most of the farms, organic farms, they are dependent on the transfer, the concentration of biomass from one area to another area, and therefore this is not sustainable in a sense that we cannot do this for the whole world. So it's impossible for making the whole world organic, but yes, we can have a good fraction of the land occupied by organic farming. Is the organic farming yields higher? That is usually a no, but in some cases it is yes. So this is all I had to bring for you today. This is just a figure showing the overall synthesis of what is the organic farming systems and what it consists on. But in general, it's highly valuable that we are concerned with the environment, that we are concerned with the soil health, with animal welfare. If we can have organic products available everywhere, that would be great. But we can copy some of the things that are from organic farming to other farms and make it more sustainable. But some of the things I don't see a reason why we should abide to all of these. For example, GMOs, for example, they're forbidden. I don't see any reason for this being forbidden, since all the plants we use are genetically modified in a sense. They are bred to have a better taste or higher yields or bigger products or more appealing products for the consumer. But GMOs will not be a big difference on this. So there's many other things in organic farms that don't make sense, but other things do make a lot of sense. So we should copy the good things and have more sustainable farming systems. So some of the traditional systems have some big advantages, and we should try to get back and analyze how it was agriculture in the past and see what we are doing wrong now, and try to use these techniques to improve our farm sustainability. That's all I have to bring for you today. Thank you very much. Next lecture we will talk about hydroponics and nutrient management in hydroponics.